Welcome. We are a global group of love and intimacy professionals, and we gather once a month to hold deep conversations around topics that we are passionate about, that we work with our clients, that each of us have done really deep healing and work in our own way. And we come together to share our tools, to share our personal stories, to share our hearts, and offer it in service so that anyone who comes and he listens might walk away with a little bit more understanding or some nuance or some beautiful golden nugget that will serve you in your life. So you'll have a chance to meet each of us and get to know all of our methodologies and the tools that we bring. My name is Harmony Scott. I am a love, life, and intimacy coach, and I'm joined by Kundycki. And Ev will introduce the rest of our gorgeous panel today. Thank you, Ev.
Thank you. I am so honored to have such a beautiful panel, and thank you, Harmony, for initiating these beautiful salons. So I'm Ev Kundycki. I'm a sex, love, and relationship coach. I help individuals and couples get better intimacy. And today we are having this beautiful salon on attachment styles, which is a theme that's close to my heart because it's been part of what initiated me into my dharma, having to heal some of my deep, deep wounds. And I would love to introduce everyone here today. We'll start with Gina.
Hello, everyone. My name's Gina. I'm from Australia and I'm a dating and attachment coach. Yeah, very, very passionate about attachment. It's really what I do, and can't wait to share and to learn today as well.
Great to have you here, Gina. Kellie Stirling.
I'm Kelly. I'm also based in Australia, in Melbourne, and I'm a relationship and life transitions coach, and I'm also a somatic experiencing practitioner.
Fantastic. I'm so happy to have you here. Heidi, please introduce yourself.
My name's Heidi, and I'm also in
Right.
Australia, in Victoria, and I also work online. And yeah, I'm a somatic sex coach.
Great to have you here. And so maybe before we dive in, I'm going to give a little quick overview of what attachment styles and attachment theory is. It began with the research by John Bowlby, I hope I say his name correctly, and Mary Ainsworth, who looked at the patterns, the adaptations that children build in their interactions with their parents. And so these adaptations are taken later on in life in the way that we function in our work, in our relationships with our partners, and just in general. This is for me more like a tool to look at to understand what are these survival mechanisms that we've built depending on the background that we grew up with, how our nervous system was trained to react to certain environments. So we have two main groups, which is the secure group and the insecure group, sort of say. And again, this is not to put in identity literally, but it's more a way of understanding that those who were in a secure environment got the advantage of having an parental or family or a structure around them in which they, as individuals, felt safe to be themselves and to be with others, where the insecure group are more the ones and that have had imperfect parenting, imperfect environments. So we have there the anxious, the avoidant, and the disorganized group. So there's many different names also for these. The anxious can be called ambivalent. These are more dependent. They have more the tendency to grasp, to hold on, to pursue in order to feel safe. This is more the type that feels more trust in the other than in themselves. And then we have the avoidant group, which would be more independent. They have learned that it's better to trust oneself than to trust the other. And this more of a tendency to be a withdrawer, to be protective, very boundaried, self-contained, and prefer to be alone in some ways, but there's a desire to connect, but not necessarily a comfort in doing that. And then the disorganized group who actually have had an environment in which both polarities are present, and not fully feeling safe with oneself and not fully feeling safe with the other, where so there's that kind of push and pull, you know, go away but don't leave me kind of feeling. So these are general guidelines, and I look forward to hearing all of your perspectives and fine-tuning these themes together. So the first question that I'd love for us to share about is, how can understanding attachment support deeper love and intimacy? Who would love to share their perspective? Or if you have any feedback or thoughts on what I shared before, please. Gina, I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, Ev, thank you so much. That was a really beautiful introduction, and I love the way that you explained each attachment style like so succinctly, but also in ways that were really easy for someone to understand, like really practical language. So thank you for that. For me, like when it comes to understanding like love and intimacy, attachment is such a fundamental part of the way that we connect to other people. You know, it really is this, you think about the foundation, right? It's the lens through which we see the world, the lens through which we like connect with other people. And so I think it's so essential to really understand our own attachment styles. And one of the big ways that it can help to, I see, support deeper love and intimacy is when you understand your own style and when you understand your partner or your friend or your family member's style, you instantly can get a deeper understanding of what you need and what the other person needs, yeah? Because depending on your attachment style, there's going to be very different needs, different communication strategies, different behaviors that happen when you shut down. And when there's an understanding of that, we can have compassion for ourselves, we can have compassion for the other people in our lives, and we can love them better because we understand what they need. You know, sometimes even they don't know, but once you understand, like I'll give the example of my brother. He's more of the avoidant type, right? And once I understood more about like avoidance, I understood what he needed and I was able to give that to him, and it's deepened our relationship, you know? And that's without him doing any work or awareness. And this is just a small example of how this understanding can deepen all of our relationships. So it's so fundamental, and I'm so like happy that we're looking at it today, because I think as, you know, relationship coaches, sex coaches of any description, like we need to understand this because it's coming up. It's coming up for everyone. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Gina. Who would love to share next?
Yeah, as a sex coach, I really see the way attachment styles really work with kind of how a couple is intimate. So there seems to be a pattern with the anxious avoidant type that they, you know, they have distance, then they have some kind of blow up, and then they resolve something, and then they have sex, and it kind of has this pattern. I tend to call it the avoidant the island, and the anxious the wave. And you know, there's one that needs space and time when there's some turmoil in the relationship, and the other one is always trying to be seen or be heard, and just constantly kind of comes up towards the island. So when I explain that to my couples who aren't having sex, which is kind of my niche, that these couples are having sexual shutdown, they can understand, as you were saying, Gina, what the other needs. So it's really building that couple bubble where we're being the person that the other needs us to be. And if we keep that at the forefront of our being, that we need to be the person our partner needs to be, if both are doing that, then it is an incredibly healing theory or way of looking at relationship and intimacy. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, because they're both great comments, so I can't really add any more on in terms of noticing the patterns of interaction. I think where I also find it very useful is people noticing themselves and starting to notice, because I always blend my somatic experiencing quite deeply in all my work, and noticing their own responses and starting to develop a more secure connection with themselves. And because we exist in an ecological system, any social system of humans, is that has a ripple effect, whether it's through the couple or through a family system or even in their workplace. So helping them to notice their own attachment style and how it plays out in all the different relationships, but also the pattern and the ripple, I think is profoundly empowering for a lot of people. And probably lowers blood pressure a little bit, I think, for some. So, yeah.
Harmony.
So wonderful to hear all of your perspectives. The way I feel, and I'll just add on, is that this gives me an opportunity to take a meta view of not only my life, but my client's life, to kind of see the territory, to see the map of the dance that is happening relationally, that is happening maybe inside myself, with me and a partner, or is happening for my clients. And I think it helps us to take it a little less personally and see that these are just these are human patterns, and to kind of give ourselves some kindness and some softness around these are things that can be shifted. And I really think that's an important aspect that I don't think is talked about enough, is that when we bring awareness and compassion and skill, and that's why people might turn to one of these coaches or one of these people to get support, is that we can rewire our body towards more security, our nervous system, our relational patterns. But it always starts from taking that view of what's really going on and not being so in the weeds that we're just being in a reactive emotional state to how someone's responding to us or not responding to us, and allows us to become more effective in getting our needs met and having the experience of love and closeness and relationship that we desire.
Thank you. And that actually brings me to the next question that I'd love to bring is, what do you see as the biggest misconception about attachment styles in the mainstream conversation today? I would share maybe that for me, when I discovered that my attachment styles were different in different relationships, I realized, like, oh, wait, that's not something fixed. It's not some kind of a stamp that I hold on myself forever. It's more kind of a dance that's being played, that understanding the styles helps me understand what pattern is going on at that moment, what application is running in the background, and to bring a lot of like gentleness and acceptance for the other and for myself, for how the reflexes get triggered. But it's not a fixed thing, and the danger would be to create an identity of like, oh, I'm avoidant, so I need my space. Or even worse, when we point the finger at somebody else saying you're this or you're that, and create an identity there. Gina.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's actually really important what you just shared around how we can be different in different situations and it's not a label. And to kind of continue a little bit on what you shared, like I see quite a few misconceptions, but one that's coming up is actually this misconception around avoidant attachment types. I see a lot of like material on social media that's often geared to people with more anxious attachment styles, and maybe they've noticed they're getting into patterns with avoidant styles. And just for a little refresher, that's where the anxious person kind of chases and the avoidant person runs away. And I see this like demonization of the avoidant person, and it's really stuff like avoidance are dangerous. I literally saw a reel like this the other day that really upset me. I wrote an angry post on it, and that the advice is just to avoid avoidance and just try and find someone who's secure so you won't have these patterns happen. And firstly, it does two things. It takes away personal responsibility and personal empowerment to heal your own patterns, right? And secondly, it's a lie. It's making out avoidant people to be like there's something wrong with them, which is one of their biggest wounds, by the way, rather than painting the real picture of who they are as people that deeply want love, deeply want connection, but have their own wounding that comes up in the way. And it makes it seem like they can't change. And that's absolutely not true. It's absolutely not the case. It is true that for avoidance, change is harder, is scarier. And a lot of them don't go there because for them to heal requires moving forward towards the thing that they fear the most. But it doesn't mean it's not possible, and it doesn't mean there's not plenty of beautiful, beautiful people with avoidant attachments parts that are doing the work and that are moving towards love and connection. So that's like a big thing I see playing out, and I understand like where it's coming from, but it's so wrong, and it's not helpful or healing.
Love that. Thanks, Gina. Kellie, please go ahead.
Great, great points. I would also add that I believe there's a misunderstanding that we are all 100% something, because the reality is we have a little bit of everything within us. And like you said, Ev, like different relationships, we have different attachment with different people. And I think people get labeled and they get stuck because they feel like they can't change. So it feels, in our role as coaches, it feels great to be able to, dispute those misconceptions, but also to open people's perspective that actually, this is really complex and you're not stuck, and there's a world of possibility out there in terms of what is possible in your own growth and healing.
One thing I would add that I think is just another perspective is what's helpful to me is to look at the attachment styles as like strategies to get the love, the belonging, the connection that we desire. And so there's just different strategies at play here. And one of the other things that I think is often overlooked, and where Gina was talking about this like almost demonization of the avoidant, is that the anxious is often kind of put up like, oh, these are the ones who are really available for love. These are the ones who are really looking for connection. And when we dig a little deeper, we notice that the anxious style or the wave is actually really avoidant to themselves. They are looking to get their needs met from someone else and putting a lot and actually disempowering themselves and not taking that sense of personal responsibility and ownership for turning first within taking care of themselves, because really our security is self-sourced in a way, even though we're relational beings and we do need to heal in relationship, we do need connection and love and belonging. There's so much that can be done with our internal relationship with ourself, meeting our inner child, for example, and really having our own back and not abandoning our values or our needs and our desires just to get relationships. So I think that's one of the things is kind of demonizing the other and not looking at ourselves when someone is holding that strategy.
Yeah, I love that perspective. Thank you. True intimacy. I like to call on true intimacy. Heidi, please go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, just back on a couple of other points, including Kellie's, this idea that if, let's say, we're anxious, it is a part. So I really like to help clients find a part of them that's secure. So it works with that somatic experiencing of resourcing, like which part of their system feels resourced and secure. And can they, usually for me it's through a meditation type practice or a contemplation practice, can they spend more time in that secure part and notice more when they go into that anxious or avoidant or disorganized state and go back to that resource of security in their system over and over again, even if it's just like a practice every day that they do for a few minutes, but really priming that neural pathway and giving them another option in their brain, in their nervous system to take. Because the more often they do it, the more likely when they get triggered, they'll go down that secure pathway rather than default to the part that they, have identified with as anxious or avoidant. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, using the secure aspect of it like a North Star through which we can feel the inspiration where to go towards instead of focusing on what not to do and where not to go. How do you use attachment theory as a supportive framework without clients over-identifying with a label or reducing others to one? Kellie, please go ahead.
I use it lightly, I would say. So from a psychoeducation perspective, to help people understand, and the dialogue is around all the things that we've talked about so far. But I tend to really bring in bring in my somatic experiencing to help them understand their internal landscape and build their capacity to regulate themselves, but really understand their capacity. So as they get more familiar with their internal sensations, their emotions, their imagery that comes up, the way that their body moves in response to attachment patterning, because I work with a lot of people who've got complex trauma. And often I'm dealing with really early childhood, pre-verbal, often baby, so pre and perinatal stuff. So they don't have any memory of it. They just know the sensations and feelings in their body. So really helping them to feel safe to be with all of that, so that when it comes up, they can notice it, and they then have strategies which we've created, which is a little bit like what Heidi was talking about, but also building capacity in their nervous system. So I often I use an analogy of, when we're very young, imagine our body is like a test tube. It's very tall and skinny. There's not a lot of space for feeling all the feelings. And so what we want to do is like expand it so the body's more like a brandy glass, and there's just more space and spaciousness for things to kind of move around. And I find those simple analogies help them think, okay, it's about capacity. And so when I am triggered in a particular scenario, we then have strategies. I can be with it, and then what happens next? So I tend to use it that way, and use the attachment theory just as the frame of understanding in the brain, but then go into the body to give them the felt experience of it. Like I said, because I'm dealing with stuff where there's no memory, so there's no context. And when there's no context, that is very overwhelming to a lot of people. They only have the somatic memory. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, using that as a framework to then go into the felt sense and bringing that spaciousness in the body. Yeah. Lovely. Gina, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Kellie. It was really enlightening. My perspective is actually quite different, as I'm an attachment coach and people are coming to me directly to work on attachment, and they already have their ideas of the label of what type they are. And something I think that can be quite helpful is to really understand it as a spectrum. So at the start of our work together, I often give clients like a little quiz, which tells them their attachment style roughly, and it breaks it up into percentages, so you might be like 10% avoidant and 30% secure and like 40% disorganized, whatever. And they can really see that it's not just one label. There's, as we've talked about earlier, multiple people have mentioned this, different parts of us, different strategies, right? And it's not just one strategy. So that helps people to kind of de-identify the label. And it's often quite enlightening, because a lot of time clients come, they think they're a certain type, and they see, oh, actually, oh, I've been really judging this anxious or this avoidant person, but I've got that too, right? And the second part of that is really seeing it as an evolution, right? Really seeing it's something you can heal, you can change, you can become more secure, right? So not over-identifying with that label, because we're actually changing it, right? It's something that's fluid and not stuck forever. So I think that also helps to A, give hope, right? I'm not stuck like this forever, and B, to be like, not identify with it too much, because it is helpful in the beginning. It's really helpful to understand your patterns, understand your strategies. It can be really like, oh my gosh, wow, people really have a sense of relief when they really understand themselves. But as we've shared, we don't want to get stuck in that box. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Harmony, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think that just all of this, the sharing and the nuance of this, it's so delicious. One other aspect of this I like to bring on is some of the training that I did with Terry Real in the relational life therapy. And he really talks about the power dynamics as well, and really looking at the two aspects of shame and grandiosity, and how those can also impact and that can bring nuance. So while I'm not specifically an attachment coach, I've definitely grounded in a lot of that theory, but I also like to look at the power dynamics and just kind of help share, because not only can we be love pursuing or love avoiding, but we can also be looking down on someone, I'm better than you, or someone else coming from like a shame-based, a lower than aspect. And so that adds like a lot of nuance too to what we're talking about. And it can also give another piece of information to clients and to myself also, because like we all have power dynamics, whether we're in a relationship or in a family or with, you know, with friends, and just going through this world, just noticing the different strategies that people use to be one up or one down, and then the different ways that they try to use that. And then really what we're all aiming for is to come into the space of relationality where we're eye to eye, where we're heart to heart, where we're equals, like really trying to work together to have a win-win situation.
Yeah, thank you. It's beautiful. And I love seeing relationships really as a spiritual path in which we hold space for each other's healing, and we can allow that space to be a combination of witnessing and being witnessed with love and compassionate presence. And in that way, understanding not from a place of being above or below, but coming from a place of this compassionate, loving presence to receive the other with their pains, with their strengths. That's very juicy. Are we ready to go to the next question, or is someone else inspired? So how has understanding your own attachment patterns influenced the way that you show up as a coach, as a therapist, or as a partner? Gina, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, this is a big one, and I'm sure everyone's going to have really juicy answers to this because it's, so important. For me, it's been absolutely life-changing, understanding my attachment and also healing it over the past few years. And it's, really changed the way I show up in all areas of life as a coach, as a partner, as a friend, as a lover, all of these things. And for me, the key component, if I break it down, it's really allowing myself to see myself and others more clearly without so many projections. A big part of the way that I view attachment, the way I was trained in it, is we see attachment as a collection of different like beliefs we have about ourselves and the world. So for example, like the anxious attachment style tends to have beliefs like I will be abandoned, I will be rejected, I'm not good enough, and the avoidant parts of us might have beliefs like I'll be trapped, I'm unsafe, I'm unworthy, etc. And so what happens, like we have these core wounds, these beliefs, and they're like a filter through which we see the world. So, I put on my anxious glasses and I'm seeing everyone else's behavior and my reality in a certain way. And then I put on my avoidant glasses and it's something different. And so, taking off these glasses, for example, I'm going to put them on so I can still see, but it helped me to see where I was projecting stories and things that weren't true onto other people and onto my life. And it helped me to see how much love and connection was actually there and really come to the truth, of what is there, and the people that are doing their best, and it's also helped me to have so much more compassion for my clients and really understanding. I can really see what's going on for them, because like, what, I had that wound and that one too, and this one and this one. And so it's bringing so much more compassion and understanding, but really it's quite beautiful. It's like, it's really beginning to see and feel the truth, which is there is love and there's connection all around us. Like it is here, but often we can't see it. We don't let ourselves receive it because we believe we're not worthy. We believe it's not there. So we just push it away and we don't see it. So it's really been a process of enlightenment, I would say, for me.
So good. Who would like to share next? Okay, well then I'm happy to share. I remember lying on the floor, the bathroom floor, feeling the cold tiles and feeling like gutted, desperate, and just really not understanding what was going on. And it's been a very humbling journey looking at those patterns and indeed seeing in which way I was having glasses in which I interpret the world outside, but also how hungry I was for a different vocabulary, how hungry I was for what is possible. And just like, I haven't been shown a different way. Like, how can I be shown a different way? And inviting that has shifted so much. But then also working with clients is like having that patience, that tenderness, that compassion, remembering the moments where I felt so deconstructed and absolutely like hopeless, and be like, yeah, I get it. Like it allows for an openness, I find, for my clients and my partner when I can accept my own, how I was humbled in having to learn being more secure with myself and with them. Yeah. Harmony, please go ahead.
So when I first found this work, and I just, the light bulb moment, and I did the quizzes, and I found, oh, this makes so much sense that I haven't had a disorganized attachment style. And that hot cold, that like running towards and then running away, and that feeling of just being all over the place was just so hard for me to deal with in my relationships, and even in long-term relationships, where even though I was in a long-term committed partnership, it was almost like I had to like keep so much distance and space for myself in order to stay in that. And just the inability to be choosing intimate relationships for a long time that really served me, because there was so much else going on. And then finally, through that process, learning to really deeply care and love myself and that inner child that was so in so much pain and just so distraught about her lack of worthiness and her lack of safety, and how I had abandoned her so often, and then just really earning that secure attachment with myself, and then seeing that so beautifully reflected in it's almost like I can look back on my relationships in my 30s and 40s, and I'm in my 50s, like just like this stepping into more and more security, more and more connection, more and more wholeness and fullness of expression. As you mentioned, like that spiritual quality of just really living into my full relational capacity, mind, body, spirit, it's been a really beautiful process, and I'm just so grateful for this perspective that played a big part of that.
Thank you, Harmony. That's very touching.
Yeah, I remember when I first read about it and I thought, oh my goodness, I wish I'd known about this in my 20s because my life would have been so much easier. Yeah, just that crystal clear understanding, people's quest for love and how they go about it. More kindness and compassion for the ex-boyfriends. And, with my partner, like it was great for the two of us to be able to sit down and understand where we were coming from. And I think with clients, like, of course, the more secure you are with yourself, that is because with relational trauma, how you heal that is by being in secure relationship with the people in your life. And that might be your intimate partner, your therapist, your coach, your chiropractor, whatever. So as a practitioner, just being able to recognize, even in my own body, when I'm feeling someone's inner child grabbing for me, because you feel it, and then being able to respond appropriately while staying secure within myself and not reacting to that is great, because it creates such a healthy and respectful dynamic in the relationship. But you're also able to attend to the client and give them what they need with boundaries appropriately at that point in time.
Yummy, yummy. Thank you.
Yeah, I just thought I'd pop in just about the difference at different times of your life and things. I'm predominantly secure. I'm really lucky to have had pretty stable childhood, but with tendencies towards anxious. However, now something's changed and I'm more tending towards avoidance. And I'm a widow, so it's something has happened within that, dynamic and the shifts and the menopause and all the things. And I do feel it's very much a chemical thing as well. I don't know how neurochemistry works in with avoidance and anxious attachment, or if there's been studies on that, but it feels it in my system. Like there's a different neurochemical moment when I'm feeling more avoidant. So it's just, I know that there's so much more to be learned about this and to be studied, and hopefully there are people out there doing these studies, because there's no one system that's not connected to another. There's the neuroplasticity, the neurochemistry is nervous system, is neural pathways, is in a child, all the things that we know about, they're all linked in some way. They're just kind of different ways of looking at the same reactions, processes in our bodies. Yeah.
What a great question, looking at the chemistry and all of that. Oof. So since attachment isn't fixed, what practices have you found most effective in helping clients build earned secure attachment? And what do you find supports regulation, safety, and repair? Who would like to share?
Yeah, for me, it's through that somatic experiencing lens that Kellie works with. And maybe mine's not quite as formalized because I'm early in that training, but really the sensation of avoidance or anxiety towards attachment or disorganized. So it's really that there is a sensation that goes with it. That's why I think it might be neurochemical as well. But being able to really slow down and notice those little micro or sometimes huge feelings in the body and be able to sit with them and then find a way to support them, see them, hold them, and then maybe shift them gently towards something that feels more secure in the body. So really the practices that I do are around feeling the body, and maybe, as I was saying before, some meditations or some practices of contemplation of what's going on in the body. But moment to moment as well, like when you're triggered, what's going on in the body, not just as a formal practice, once a day or whatever. Yeah, but some clients don't work that way, or I haven't learnt to fully help them into their felt sense if they're really up in their brain, and they're really cognitive, and therefore some explaining, some diagrams, some, leading them to podcasts or something so that they can really understand themselves can be a different way around doing it, because not all people are able to really feel as quickly as you want them to. You might have to spend years with them to get them to that state. I'm sure we're all capable, but sometimes people are looking for something a little bit more tangible. So yeah.
Thank you. Gina, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi, for sharing that piece. And I would agree that working with the somatics and, nervous system regulation is really important. And just to kind of speak a little bit further to what you raised, Heidi, that sometimes people are not fully ready to go into the body. It can be quite a lot. And so what I've found with my more recent attachment training with integrated attachment theory, I did that at the start of this year, is we're working at a more subconscious level, which is really beautiful. So as I mentioned, this way of looking at attachment looks at core beliefs that you have, and they're subconscious beliefs. They're not necessarily conscious, but such as I'll be abandoned, I'm unsafe, I'll be trapped, I'm shameful. And what we do is we do a process that works with the subconscious mind to kind of reprogram these beliefs. So working with neuroplasticity, and it's a 21-day process. And essentially all you're doing is you're looking for for evidence in your life, so kind of resourcing evidence that you are loved, that you're supported, that you're not alone, right? Literally writing down that list of evidence, and then every morning and evening, when your mind is more open to and more neuroplastic, you're visualizing these pieces of evidence and you're feeling it in your body a little bit. So I'm going to visualize, that I'm loved because, yesterday my brother called me. I'm loved because, I have a friend who I catch up once a week. And it helps people to start to access the body a little bit because they get a little bit of a pleasant feeling, and it's very pleasant. So it's not like, okay, we're going to go straight into like the fear and your, the trauma that's happening. And what I love about this is it really works. It really works. It's consistent. It is addressing like the core wounds that are for each attachment style. And it's really regulating because every day people are giving themselves evidence that they're safe and that they're loved, and it feels so good. And part of the reason I think people can get really dysregulated is, of course, like the trauma, right, in the nervous system, right, the somatics, but also it's all the stuff that's going around in their head, right? They're constantly going around every day being like, I'm unsafe, I'm going to be rejected, I'm going to be abandoned, I'm not good enough. That causes a lot of agitation. That takes a lot of energy. And so when we use the neuroplasticity of the mind to kind of reset these beliefs, it's like we're not having so much energy up in our head, right? We're feeling more calm and regulated. And from that space, I often find when we then go into somatics, it's a lot easier for people to access it, a lot easier to work with IFS and things like this because they've had this like preparation stage. Anyway, sorry, that was a long answer. But essentially, I would say, looking at the subconscious mind to directly address some of the core beliefs that people have is super supportive. And it's really life-changing in my experience that I've seen with clients. So yeah.
Thank you, Gina. Harmony.
Yes, I love that idea of really working not only with the somatics, but the neuroplasticity and retraining those deeper subconscious mind. And on that same pathway is also working with the idea of multiplicity. Some of us have studied IFS or Jungian psychology, the subconscious. And so I work a lot with the different parts work where we look at different parts of us can be having different experiences. One part of us could be, say we're getting into a new relationship, and one part of us really deeply wants and desires, and it's a healthy person, and we're really wanting to move closer to them. But there's another part of us that's very avoidant, it's very afraid. And so kind of giving us people the opportunity to see that different parts of us can have very different reactions to the same relationship, whether that part is a like a less mature part, or it's a part that has had past damaging experiences, or it's a part that wants to be more career oriented, or wants to protect itself. Sometimes doing those parts work and really getting clear on these different strategies that exist within us. Even though we're one, we can have different experiences. Not everyone is open to that kind of work. So I tend to only enter into that with people who have a capacity to be more open-minded and playful with that. But it does have a long history of, from Jung and a lot of our, shamanic traditions as well. There can be a lot of aspects of us that can be in conflict internally. And so really holding space and learning how to love those pieces and bring them into a place of acceptance of like, maybe they'd be willing to not take the lead in this area, or step back, or wait and see what happens, or tend to those parts. Sometimes they're just screaming for attention. So that can be more esoteric for some people, but it can be incredibly powerful and very transformational. And actually, sometimes I've seen that can make really quick and lasting shifts for people when we really identify a part that's in opposition to the client's goals or my own goals or whatever.
Yeah, thank you. Kellie, please go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think parts work, or IFS in particular, is great to help people understand their multidimensional self. For me, it depends on the nervous system, depends on what you're working with. And I have found with really early stuff that neuroaffective touch is amazing for people as a restorative process, because often the touch that was missing in childhood can be given whether we do it in person or online. It's the restoration that's required. So we're dealing with people who, they're relational wounds, and so the healing has to happen in relationship as well. So that touch that was not received as a child, giving it to them now can be incredibly supportive to them. And there was one more thing I was going to say, and it's just left my brain. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Gina, please go.
I just had a question for Kellie because I've never heard of this before, neuroaffective touch. If we have time, is it okay for her to explain a little bit more what that is and how it works?
Well, so it's a branch of somatic psychology. So if you do SE training, you learn touch training, and then there is sub branches of that around neuroaffective touch. So it's kind of extra training that you then go and do after you finish your SE training. It takes quite a while. So a lot of relational healing a lot of relational wounds happen in definitely the first 3 years. Okay. So a baby's nervous system develops and they learn to soothe through touch, the prosody of the parent's voice. So it's the parent lending their nervous system that teaches the baby's nervous system over time how to regulate, okay, and how to self-soothe and do all those things. So when that has not been present, that is the thing that is restorative and helpful to a lot of people. And of course, it's very slow work because we're working with something that's been there for a long time. So relational trauma is very different to shock trauma or individual event trauma. And so you work with it very, very differently. And so, yeah, touch is kind of the restorative thing. And a lot of it is, it might be supporting, it's generally working with diaphragms, working with joints. But you use pillows, you use support, and it's about people receiving essentially what they didn't have as a restorative process and a healing process to their nervous system. And it's slow, it's gentle, it's slow, it's nurturing. And, that baby self who didn't get it, or that, young 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, it's getting what it needs. And so that's where the repair happens in a secure relationship with the therapist that they're working with.
Yes, Heidi, please
That's
go
okay.
ahead.
Is that okay?
Thank you so much, Kellie. Yes, it's great.
So great, Kellie. And I experienced that recently, that neuroaffective touch. It's really interesting. So I just want to bring up another way that can be really supportive for clients, and it really depends on the flavour of the client. So ones that tend to be more spiritual, resourcing and something outside of themselves can be really powerful, like nature or the goddess or the universe or the God or Jesus or whoever it is, or whatever it is. But that can be really effective for this kind of attachment work. So if you don't have that really good attachment with a parental figure, where can you find that attachment elsewhere? Like what nourishes you and resources and supports you that's outside of that kind of familial place? Where do you feel mother? Can you feel mother in the earth? That kind of thing. So I just thought I'd bring that little bit up.
Yeah, I love that. Where do we feel love? Where do we feel love around us? And I really cultivate allyship when I work with couples, where it's about how can we sit there for each other and in those relational wounds with the touch, with the presence, taking on the role of being on your side, on the same side, with touch, with healing words, and feeling that support in the body. And it's something that they practice with me, having difficult conversations, is instead of taking on the difficult conversations on their own, right? Like we practice first, and then like, how can that be held in a calm, peaceful way? I have a calm nervous system when that happens. They can co-regulate. and they build their muscle bigger and bigger in their ability to stay in allyship, to stay in that energy of spaciousness, relaxation, of love with each other. Yeah, Gina, please go ahead.
Oh, so beautiful, Ev. Thank you. I just wanted to add on to what, Heidi said around, if we didn't have these examples of love and safety with parental figure, and sourcing that outside ourselves. I just wanted to share another like methodology that you might be interested to learn about. It's called the Ideal Parent Figure Protocol, and it's outlined in this book called Attachment Disturbances in Adults. Yeah, Kellie's heard of it. And it's essentially you're imagining ideal parents, right? And so, we may, or I think everyone here knows that the subconscious mind can't tell the difference between reality and imagination. And so going through a process where you're consistently imagining ideal parents that are attuned to you and that can give you that love and safety. And I've also heard it done, I don't do this, but imagining an ideal partner. How would a securely attached partner respond to you? And literally imagining that, and that can actually have a really beautiful effect on healing attachment as well. So thanks for bringing that, Heidi.
Lovely. And I'd love to introduce the next question, which is how do cultural background, family systems, and generational patterns influence how attachment styles are expressed and healed? Has any one of you had? Yeah, I see Heidi, go for it.
Yeah, I seem to have a pattern at the moment of having clients come to me where one of the couple is second generation Australian. So their parents, or maybe they were born in another country but came early to Australia. So their parents are from another culture. And the parents, once they got to Australia, they had to like really, really work hard to fit in. Maybe they didn't speak the language, they both had jobs, and the child had this funny mix of being both Australian and from the country of origin of their parents. And that and attachment really seems to be something that is quite specific, being in between cultures. And so I just wanted to bring it up. It's not something I know much about. I'm just seeing it in clients, and I still work in the same way. But there does seem to be something where there is a very avoidant child who has come to Australia very young, or their parents, didn't have the culture, and then maybe those parents were so busy that the kids had to become very, very independent, and also maybe teach their parents the language and be the parent in some way for their parents. Really, really interesting stuff. I haven't got much more to say to it than that, but that's something that I'm really noticing in my field at the moment.
Thank you, Heidi. Kellie, please go ahead.
Thank you, Heidi. That prompted me. I have also worked, I guess it's Australia. There's a lot of immigrants here, like there is in North America. Yeah, I've noticed that. Have also seen that pattern, and also what I'm often dealing with those people, they're a parentified child. So because of language barriers, or mum and dad just having to work all the time, they had to become the parent in the family. It's very complex. And it takes quite a bit of time to work with it. And that it's almost like a cognitive dissonance for them, that I have one culture that I am at home, and then another when I go out to school, or I'm in the world, or I'm working. And that's, it's really challenging. And almost, different attachment with the family versus the external environments as well. So, yeah. I don't think I can add more to it than that, other than how do I work with it? I just take it at face, like I work with the person and the nuance and complexity of their cultural lineage and how it's showing up and how it's impacting them.
Thank you. I'd love to add how I work sometimes with Indonesians and mixed couples. So different types of communication, where in one, you don't want to lose face. You don't, like, it's more internal processing, and the other is more external processing. And you have also like sometimes the more southern countries that are like more passionate. It's like, how have we understood love? And reframing that can be also beneficial within the relationship. It's like, it's not necessarily always that invasive. It can feel super invasive, but it can be a way of cultural expression too.
I just wanted to add one thing, just building off of that to kind of bring it home, was this idea that when we're growing up in our family of origin, and even if it's something that's landed in our nervous system as infants or whatever, we're often dealing with either modeling what we received, or so we're patterning after. We had an avoidant parent, or someone who was overwhelming us and, like, pouring too much attention on us. Or we move in the opposite direction where we are reactive against it. We're like, I'm never going to be like that. And I have several clients right now where we're handling, I think everyone kind of is always dealing with that. Am I in the mold of my family of origin, or am I in reaction to, like, am I choosing things the opposite of, right? And so that can be really impactful, like discerning how we are following dad's footsteps and exploding in anger, or being X, Y, or Z, or if we are going the opposite direction because there's just every fiber of our being doesn't ever want to be that way. And that can be really impactful in our attachment system too, and how we're playing that out in our adult life. And it's really good to bring awareness to that as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. I want to thank you all for sharing your medicine. And I would love if you each had one word to complete what is then secure love for you. If you had one word.
Connected.
Grounded.
Anchored.
Beautiful. Peaceful. Peaceful is the one. Thank you so much, everyone, for showing up, for sharing your medicine and your wisdom. And to our next salon, hopefully. Much love.